Welcome to StreetTV. This is Alex Alonso, and I'm here with a special guest to talk about some issues that's been heavy on our mind. I'm here with Mariah, and I'm going to let Mariah just give a brief introduction of herself, and we're going to get into some topics that's been heavy on her heart lately. So take it away, Mariah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mariah Hayes. I am a two-time published author, single mother of two, a 13-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl. And I've had a couple things that's been heavy on my heart, and especially with our youth and the crime that's going on in Los Angeles County. And I definitely thought today was the time to speak about it.
All right. Well, before we get into those heavy topics, I just want to ask you a couple of questions on your background. You're from Los Angeles?
Yes, Los Angeles County.
Okay. And which high school did you go to?
San Pedro High.
Okay.
So Harbor area.
And you said you have two kids, a 13-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl. Are you single, or
Yes.
are you with any of the fathers of the two kids?
No, I have one kid's father, and no, we are no longer together.
Okay. And how old were you when you had your 13-year-old boy?
I was 17, so I did finish high school, but I definitely was 17. I just turned 17.
Okay. And you mentioned you are a two-time published author. Can you give us a little background on what you've published?
Yes, my first book is an urban fiction novel called Poppy. Very good book, by the way. Actually, Alex Alonso was one of my. We go way back. He was the first person who gave me the opportunity to tell my story and introduce myself to the world. And that was in 2019?
I thought it was before that.
Maybe 2018, maybe?
The way to date it is, when did that guy YNF Melly come to Los Angeles? And I thought that might have been 2018.
2018. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, because he definitely was there. I think funny backstory of that was YNW Melly was there filming a video while we had our book release. So that's just a funny little story about that.
And for those who don't know, YNW Melly is currently facing a double murder case in Florida right now. He is due to go to trial sometime this year with another another YNW friend from his group.
Right.
So yeah, I remember you had your book signing, came down there. We had a mutual friend at that time named Terry.
Terry Roten, yes.
Terry Roten, and I had been doing some interviews with a bunch of portraits, and that's how I met you, Mariah, and that's been, it's been 5 years, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get into some of these topics. Well, first tell me, why are these issues of being a parent, having kids, being a single mom, dealing with a boy who's now 13, why have they become so important for you right now?
So I'll say this. I was with my kid's father for 8.5 years, father of both my kids. And I started noticing the same behaviors in my son that I noticed in his father. And since my son was 3 years old, I had been taking, even though he probably doesn't remember a lot of the things, I was implementing so many things on him, teaching him about Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Black Panthers, things like that. Taking him around the world. I believe when they opened that Black History Museum, I can't really remember the name, in Washington, D.C., what's the name of that museum? Can't think of it at the top of my head. But just having a Black son, I wanted to make sure I was steering him in the right path. Even if he wouldn't remember, he can say one day, my mama took me here. She's been implementing all these things about me to be a proud young Black man. And even with that knowledge and me taking him to Louisiana to visit plantations and reminding him the importance of being a Black man and not being what society will label him, I started noticing since about 6th grade, he started going down the wrong path, and it started concerning me a lot. Just noticing the little behavior. My son can garden. He loves to play with his lizards. And I noticed more he was into that phone and more so wanting to be around his friends and not so much paying attention to the things that I taught him and just not being the young man that I raised him to be. And with that being said, it kind of scared me. Like, okay, these are not the things that I've taught you. And, you know, LA culture is gangbanging. You know, even if you grew up in the suburbs, it's almost forced upon you to, nowadays, either you choose the life of the streets or you hide yourself in the house and play video games, or you're getting bullied. You know, so within the last couple of months, I started seeing him changing a lot. And even with the conversations I'm having with him, there's only so much as a mother that I can teach this young man to do, but without his, you know, that the black father is so much more, he needs to be present and he needs to guide him down that right path. And that's when his father and I had to get together and be like, yeah, something's going on.
Okay, so you address these issues with his father, and have you guys come up with a plan? Have you guys decided what to do? And also have you guys discussed the impact of, I'm assuming you're doing most of the heavy work with raising this boy, because you guys don't live together, the father and you. And have you guys had a conversation about the impact that might even have on your son?
Yes. So when we first started noticing the changes, I had a conversation with his father, and we do get along really well. You know, we've been separated for quite some time, but we get along really well. So the first step was we went to his school. Now the teachers were like, oh, his grades are great. You know, he's our best student. We shadowed all his classes. No one had nothing bad to say about him. All his teachers, all his friends, he's doing so well. So we're like kind of confused, like, so, you know, where's this coming from? So what I did was I started paying attention to just letting him be him. You know, I give him 15 minutes to get home. The school's 30 seconds from my house. I give him 30 seconds. I give him 15 minutes to get home. You know, talk to your friends, whatever. And with that, I started letting him accumulate his little, you know, letting him be himself. And kids are not that smart. They think they're getting over on their parents. I'm 30 years old. You're not getting over on me. I wasn't out of high school that much long ago. So one day I just decided to go through his phone, and boom, that was the real him.
Boom. What did you find out?
The gang banging, the weed, the way he talks, and we're talking about this child that is well mannered. You know, speaks so well. He's a granny's boy. He's a mama's boy. He's loves his sister to death. You know, don't really have to remind him to do his chores. And once I went through the phone, my heart was broken. And so I had to talk with his dad. I'm like, we're going to have to sit him down and ask him, well, who are you? You know, to me, you're Jeremiah. You're my baby. I see you as my baby. But who are you? When you leave this house, who are you? What do they call you? Because I call you Jeremiah, but what do they call you in the streets? When you get to school, who are you? I'm Jeremiah. I'm like, no. I know everything. And it was best that we took it to the approach where we weren't yelling and screaming and hollering and making him feel like he wasn't comfortable. And then everything started coming out. Yes, Mom, I've been smoking. Yes, Mom, I'm kind of claiming this. But we were able to catch it in a time where he wasn't in too deep, where it wasn't to where the police caught him, or God forbid it really got into the streets. You know, you go to juvenile, you don't get a bond. You juvenile detention, you don't get a bond. I can't save you from that. I'm your mom. I support you, but I don't support that. And with that being said, it was time for his dad to really step up. It's time for him to guide him down the right path. There's only so much that I can do as a mother, but I'm soft at the end of the day. You know, it's hard to see him sad. You get the puppy dog eyes because that's my baby boy. But with the father, he's not going for that. So with his father, I felt that he needs to be more consistent. And the consistency means, even though we live 20 minutes apart, you got to pick him up every day after school, or you got to put him in sports. You got to do these, you got to be on him about certain things, you know, girls, especially the young ladies and things like that. And having to remind him, you know, drugs are being laced. And these are conversations we've had before you even entered middle school. Since he started, I want to say over 12 kids already overdosed. 2 kids already got shot the first week of school. things like that. And even though I expressed it to him how this is serious, yeah, mom, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. But I think that it's very important, especially with Black kids, that they see that their parents are, regardless whether we're together or not, we're still a family and we're still on the same page.
Now, what's the reaction from the father in terms of you expressing your concerns about what's going on with your son and you wanting him to step up and do more?
He was all for it. He was brokenhearted because he was like, wow, this is me all over again. He was shocked, but then he also did take the blame, like he wasn't consistent enough, thinking that, you've been raising him right. I'm on him when every other weekend when I have him, but that's not enough. Back in the days, they used to send the boys off, like, even in the village, to send them off to the men, and the men raise them up right, and he was brokenhearted. He really was, because it's like, this is serious. And nowadays, kids are getting killed 11, 12, 13. We got a 13 little boy now. This is serious. So now it's his time to shine. Now it's his father's time to show him, like, the things that I just can't as a mother. I could only do so much. I don't have any brothers. My father's been in my life my whole life, but I'm not a man. I could pay attention to the signs. I can continue to talk to you. I can continue to coach you. I can continue to make a space where you're comfortable enough to have these conversations with me. But there's just things I can't show you how to maneuver in the streets. And nowadays, these kids feel like they gotta be a gangster. They gotta be this, and you don't have to be that. I even try to tell him, a gangster is getting good grades, respecting yourself, coming home, doing what you gotta do. You can be a business owner. You can do all these things. Even if he can garden really well. I said, even if even if you like to garden so well, eventually of age, learn how to grow weed and you become a successful weed owner. Now that it's legal in California, but I think that right now it's so important that these kids have some type of mentorship. They have to be busy, whether it's sports, whether it's something that they like, trying to be relatable but not be their friend. I have to remind them all the time, I'm not your friend, I'm your mother at the end of the day. And it's like a battle between not being angry but trying to understand, because I'm still very young too. So I understand. I'm still trying to figure myself out. And then social media is one thing that I absolutely have told him, no, you're not allowed to be on social media, like, at all. And that was one thing I found out. I found his secret Instagram page. Wasn't pleasant to see, because it's like, this is my baby acting like this. You're talking like this and you speak so well. You're typing this and typing that. And then it wasn't that I was embarrassed. It was more so I was brokenhearted. Like, why do you choose to be this way when you don't have to? You have all the resources. I'm here. I have sisters. I have my mother. I have my father. I have so many family members. We're all involved, but you're choosing to trust in your peers. Why?
Well, he's young. That's pretty much why. And I think you're presented with one of the most difficult things as a single mom, is trying to teach a boy to become a man. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's impossible. Yes. For a single woman to do that. Are there exceptions to the rule? Probably. But you definitely are going to need the assistance of the father through these tough years, because it's going to get tougher, 14, 15, 16. My question is, are you getting any resistance from your 13-year-old, or is he telling you everything you want to hear?
I'm not getting resistance. More so he sugarcoats things. He tries to make it seem like it's not as bad as it really is. And I'm trying to explain to him, but it's hard to tell a child, like, this is life. And we had came across this video I came across this video on YouTube, and it was a black mortician, and he was explaining, like, I want all parents to show this to their kids. And he was explaining what happens. Like, this is where you're going to end up. If you want to be in the streets, this is what we're going to do to your body. This is where you end up. And then after your funeral, guess what? All your homies and forgot about you. They getting drunk and on to the next. And I watched that, and we watched that video with him, and he kind of was affected by him, but it still didn't like register in his mind. And he's never been to a funeral before, thank God, you know. And you know, these kids nowadays feel that it's necessary to play with guns or have knives and prove they're overly gangster and all these things. Yeah, you can protect yourself, but also don't be the person that's provoking the situation. And I seen that a lot in him. He has a really big leadership role, but instead of using that in a positive way, he started using it in a negative way. So now you got kids falling underneath you doing negative things when you don't have to do that. I tell him all the time, we got this big old backyard. Why don't you and all your friends come play basketball? Oh no, we just want to go over here and hang out over here. Oh, we know we just want to do, we're not doing bad stuff. But the police may not think that. Society may not see you as what I see you. And I'm a realist. You know, I'm not going to say, oh, I have the best child ever. Just because you get straight A's doesn't mean that after school you're not doing other things. And even though I'm not even giving you that much time after school in your home, you're somehow still getting involved in stupid behavior that you don't have to. Like, it is okay to be yourself. And whoever's not accepting of that are not your friends. And one thing I've always told him was, half these people you're going to know, they're not your friends. These are your associates. You know, and so right now I'm working on with him and a couple of his other friends, helping them with their grades, tutoring. And that's just on my own. I don't want no money from it, nothing. I've talked to the other parents just to keep them safe, because some of these parents at work, they can't get to their kids until after school. Some of these kids are walking home. Anything, God forbid, can happen to them. You know, so I'm trying to play my part in that and just showing him like I care so much. So I'm starting to see a little change in him. I'm starting to see a little bit more of my baby again, but he is getting older. And again, that's where the black father is so important.
Definitely. Now, you said you went through his Instagram and learned a couple of things about weed and claiming something. How are you going to address those situations? Because drugs is not only a major problem today because of the fentanyl that's lacing all these drugs, but it's always been a peer pressure for, I mean, kids going back for I don't know how many generations, even to my dad's, our parents' generation.
Right.
It's always been an issue. Have you had a conversation with the father in terms of dealing with these two things you learned about on social media, him claiming something and then participating in drug use?
Yes. So as far as the gang banging situation went, I talked to him about that, but that was some more of a conversation I felt that him and his father should have, being that he is a man and he was in the streets as well. His father's young too. So that was a conversation they privately had on their own. And that's something that I feel like a father would have to train their child up right when it comes to those things, because I'm a woman. I'm soft. That's something I can't, like. And I remember, and it's not to put his father down, going to have to visit him in jail, pregnant with my son, 17 years old. And that was horrible. And as far as the drug use and, smoking weed, that concerned me a lot, because the conversation that I did have was, and this is not in no way, shape, or form am I saying that I agree to it and I would want my 13-year-old child to smoke, but I did tell him, and this is something his father had told him as well, if you ever felt that you just had to and you just wanted to try it, come to us. Because if you go to your friends and you go to your peers, you don't know what they're putting in that. You don't know what they're lacing it with. And you just getting a pre-roll from somebody, you just smoking it from other people, you don't know what's in there. You may not ever come back from that. Or God forbid, you die. And, it still didn't register to him. It still was like, okay, yeah, well, my friends seem okay. So the other day I had a conversation with him and I said, well, what is peer pressure to you? What does it mean to you? When you see your friends smoking and they're telling you like, oh, yeah, everything's going to be okay. You see, I'm fine and all these things. How are their parents? And I'm not judging anybody else's parenting because I'm still learning as I go every day. I'm evolving every day as well. And he said, well, some of their parents allow them to. Some of their parents don't care. I said, well, we care.
Mm-hmm.
And your brain and smoking, you're going to slow yourself down. You're going through all these hormones, you're hitting puberty, you're going through all these things. It's just not for you. And for you to trust a friend, you don't know what could have happened to you. You just don't know. And all these kids are just overdosing left and right and left and right. And these kids don't know that, like, they're rushing their life and they don't see no type of urgency. And you can end your life like this and that'll be it. You can be a phenomenal person, but you're not even giving yourself the opportunity because you're choosing to go the wrong direction. So now it's like I have to be on it about everything. And I feel one thing that a lot of us parents do is give too much trust in our children because we feel like we're raising them right. And you can't put that much trust in a child, no matter what.
Well, I think women trust their kids more. I've also clashed with my wife many a times where she wants to give the trust to the kid, and I always have to remind her that I don't trust any of my kids because I understand what goes on out there. Now, for you as a woman to say we know to talk about trust, that's interesting because I see that most women are in denial of what their kids are doing. Mm-hmm. They give their kids too much trust, and it allows them to lead down a road where it can get out of control pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. But you're saying you're seeing certain things that is it preventing you from giving them trust, or you want to give trust, or what's your position on the trust with your son?
I think so a little backstory is we moved to Atlanta for 3 years, me and my 2 kids. And at that point, he was showing me he was much more responsible, and I think I relied on him a lot, like, because it's just us 3. And I think that at the time I put way too much pressure on him, and I take full responsibility on that. And the reason why we moved was because I was afraid for him to get into gang banging. At the time, I didn't know Atlanta was gang banged out the way it was. It's the same thing going on in every other city. Mm-hmm. So that was me being in denial too. So when we came back out here, one of the first things we talked about was I was like, when we get out here, ain't gonna be none of that. I trust you. I've raised you right. I'm thinking, okay, he got it. He has the knowledge I've given him. I just got to stay on top of it. And the minute you give a child, well, I'm gonna just speak for me personally, a little bit of inch of space, they're gonna take it and run with it. And that's exactly what he did.
So you might have given a little bit too much trust.
Absolutely.
When he wasn't deserving of it.
Absolutely.
Now, what impact do you think those 3 years in Georgia had without the father being around on your kids?
A huge impact, because although he may have visited them and only a couple months, you see your father every now and then, you're getting over on me because you may get punished for a day or two, and I'll give me your phone, give me your jewelry, and then 2 days later I'm giving it back to you. So what are you really learning from that?
And the father was okay with you moving to Georgia for 3 years?
He wasn't okay with it, but at the time he also wasn't consistent enough. So what could you have really said? To me it was like, these is my babies. You not consistent. And he was much more irresponsible. And I in my eyes at the time, I felt that I was saving my children and to give them the opportunity to see that there's more than just life right here. I've taken them to travel to many different states, taking them all these different vacations. So in my eyes, those was my babies, and not giving him the opportunity to step up.
So you're less reluctant now to give your son a certain level of trust, being that you went through that social media, you went through those DMs, and you saw the real deal.
Yeah, because one of the thing was, who are you? Because the Jeremiah that I thought I knew is not who you are when you step off this porch, when you leave the house every day. The person you are is when you step outside.
Well, that's very typical for kids, especially kids in the streets. I've heard millions of stories of kids always presenting themselves one way for their family, for their mother, their father, their parents, and as soon as they go out there, they do a whole different act. Verbum Day, the Catholic school in Watts. I mean, this is a private school that parents were sending their kids to. Half that school was gangbanging, and this was a nice school. You know, half those kids was getting involved in stuff, but they'd go home and hide it from their parents, and they were very good at it. This is, you know, we're going back to the 70s and 80s, so what your son is doing today is nothing new than kids from the streets going back, you know, 30, 40 years. Always hide it from your parents until it gets to the point when you're like 16, 17, and you don't got to hide it, because at that point, you're not telling a 16 or 17-year-old what to do. But you can tell a 13-year-old what to do.
Right.
You know, so you're at a good point where you can have an impact and you can change the trajectory, but you definitely going to have cooperation from the father, and he's got to be extremely consistent, in my opinion.
Yeah, it has to be, and that's my biggest thing. You have to be consistent, because I've noticed with young men, if you're not consistent, it shows that you don't care. You're failing. You don't care. You don't really care. And, you know, kids know how to manipulate a situation. See, in my daughter's eyes, her dad is the best thing ever. She's so young. He's everything to her, you know? And in my son's eyes, they're so much alike, and there's a little bit of animosity between them, and that's something that they have to solve between each other. And sometimes I get caught in the middle. It's almost like they're brothers, and I'm like, no, that's your father and this is your son. Y'all not brothers. So it's some type, and I believe that's because there was not enough consistency there. And now that he's trying to be consistent, in my son's eyes, I've noticed he's like, I don't care. Like, you know, you can't nobody tell me nothing. And I'm not going for that. At the end of the day, that's your father. You're going to respect authority. So that, I noticed that is the biggest issue right now that I could see between them. And regardless of what happened in the past and their relationship in the past, moving forward to save my child, with all the resources we have, and no matter how hard I am on him, he needs his father present consistently.
Now, what's the likelihood or the chance that you and the father could work out your relationship so that you guys can raise the kids together? And I mean, like, under the same roof, in the same home, to provide these two kids, because we haven't talked about your daughter, but you got an 8-year-old too that would benefit tremendously if the family unit could at least be together and you work out your differences with this man. Have there been a conversation about that at all?
That'll never happen.
Why not?
It's too much. It was too much. The damage has been done. It's way beyond fixable. It took me a very long time to heal from that. So that'll never happen. But as far as respect and, you know, if we have to take the kids somewhere, like whenever awards and things like that, especially my daughter's student of the month, all that, she's doing so good in school. And again, my son's doing good in school. We come together, that holidays, birthdays, all those things, we come together. But as far as a relationship between him and I, that'll never happen.
Has he ever reached out and expressed an interest in fixing whatever he did in the past to make himself a better partner?
He has. And now he's in a relationship. So, but as within the last year or two, no, that conversation doesn't even, I think he knows at this point that it's beyond repair. There's absolutely not even 1% chance that'll ever happen.
That's disappointing, because, you know, deep down in the back of your kids' minds, they might not ever say this. They want to see their parents together.
Right, I'm sure.
I'm sure. That's like their dream, you know, like my parents together. And it's unfortunate that you guys can make two kids together, but you can't figure out how can we raise these together as a family.
One thing I'll say, honestly, it wouldn't be fair to him, because maybe he's a changed man now, but I would never be able to love him the way he should be loved, because in my heart and in my mind, even though I feel like I've forgiven him, I would never be able to love him and treat him right. I would always think in the back of my mind that and it's not even just cheating, it's the way you treated me, Cheating wasn't the worst thing you've done to me. You put me through a lot of trauma where it took me therapy and a lot to heal from, so that's not fixable.
Can you talk to the point of where you're able to respect him, get along, and be cordial? Because the way you talk about the trauma, it seems like it would be even difficult being in the same room with this man. But you guys have managed to get along and respect each other today.
Yes.
How'd you get to that point? How are you able to do that?
Me. It took me to be the bigger person, because I don't think that I don't even think to this day he really understands how much it impacted me and how much it ruined me as a woman, even to this day. But it took me a lot of soul searching and healing, and talking to God, writing letters, going to therapy, crying my eyes out. I used to say this man ruined my life for many, many years. I want to say up until last year, it took me to be like, I have to let it go.
Did that have anything to do with why you went to Georgia for 3 years?
Yes. Because it was like, maybe if I leave and I don't have to think about what I went through, but it still followed me there. It almost felt like I was in prison in this beautiful home. I had a beautiful home out there. It almost felt like I was in prison with my thoughts, and it made me face everything I've been through with this man.
Okay, well, we've been talking mostly about your son, but we cannot ignore your daughter, who's 8 years old. And, even though we don't think our kids are paying attention, we, as 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, we're paying attention to a lot of stuff we might not understand what it means. Mm-hmm. But then when we get older, when we get 15, 16, then they'll say, dang, now I know what that meant when I was 7. Mm-hmm. So have you thought about the impact of this relationship on your daughter too? And is she seeing her older brother going through these changes, and now it's becoming an issue? What about the daughter? What are you thinking about her future?
So I'll say this, I'll start off with this. When it comes to her father, like I said, she thinks of him as the best thing ever. When we split, she was only like 3 months old. So, but he's been present. It's just the inconsistency. We've always lived within 20 minutes from each other, whether I had my own place, he had his own place. We've always lived close to each other.
Except for the 3 years in Georgia.
Except for the 3. But he still made his best bet to be there for birthdays and holidays, and always sent money, whatever the case may be. And another thing I wanted to throw out there, I never put him on child support.
Why do you want to emphasize that? Why is that important?
Because for me, it was a prideful thing. And then another thing was, I felt like I didn't hate, because sometimes, I don't want to say hate, I didn't want to see him go through courts and stuff like that. I think I was traumatized by seeing him go through court when he was going to jail and all those things. So it was just like, that traumatized me still. And I had that much care and empathy for him. I didn't want to put him through that. So, and he's never not provided for my children. So I was like, why go there? Whatever they needed, he would provide. So I didn't even have to, we still had that much respect for each other for him to still provide and not be bitter towards each other.
Is he currently responsible for other kids too?
No, just these two for now. I'm sure he wants more kids. I know he's in a relationship. So if he has more kids, I wouldn't be upset with that.
So these 2 kids are both your first 2 kids?
Yes.
His first 2 kids, your first 2 kids?
Yes.
Okay. So he's been a good provider, and you kept the court system out, and I think that's commendable, because sometimes, man, that court system could really, it always goes in the favor of the woman.
Yeah, and I didn't want to do that. Honestly,
it's always against the man. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, and it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I've educated myself on that too, and I didn't want to put him through that too. Even though he's put me through hell at one point in my life, I still couldn't see myself doing that.
Now, let me ask you, because you were going through so much trauma with this guy, did you ever feel compelled, or did other people tell you, take him to court?
Oh yeah,
make
everybody.
it bad for him, right?
Everybody put him through hell, this and another. I said no. I serve a good God. He'll deal with it on his own. And guess what? Me leaving and walking out of his life, he had to deal with that on his own because the most loyal woman on his team left him. Outside of his mother and his sisters, but I'm saying as his woman, yeah, you can't trust it. I'm pretty sure he couldn't trust these other women. And this is not speaking for the woman that he's with now, but I'm saying, outside of probably that, I'm sure he'll never get that, I mean, I had his back to the fullest extent. But back to my daughter, I always speak life into her. I make sure she sees her dad in a good light. I always make sure he's present, knows everything that's going on in her life. That's daddy's princess no matter what. If there's something going on, he's always there and involved. So I try to make it as normal as possible, but still where they know that we're family, but we're just not together. And I'm trying my best to keep it as normal, but still they know we are not together.
Have you told your son everything you do, whether it's inside this house or outside this house, impacts your little sister too?
Oh, yeah, because when he got in trouble, she was bawling her eyes out. And that's what really broke my heart because I'm like, your sister is crying her eyes out because you're in trouble and you're affecting her. And she's like, Mommy, I don't want him to be in trouble anymore. And then I had to explain it to her. Her dad had to explain it to her. This is what happens for her to understand, not in a way where it was too much for her to take in. But with her, I'm especially on her with being a young lady, respecting herself, things like that. And my daughter thinks me and her are the same person. She says we're the same soul. So I try to keep her as innocent as possible and in a way where she's not exposed to too much. But I do talk to my children still, and I'm pretty open with them for their mind, for what they can take in.
Definitely. Now, did you find anything regarding sexual activity when you were going through the social media and when you was doing your investigation? Because that's definitely a very serious topic. I'm sure most 13-year-old kids are starting to open up their eyes to the opposite sex and thinking about sex, if not even starting. Some kids do start at 13 when it comes to sex. So have you had a chance to talk to the father about it and then talk to your boy about that?
So when I went through his phone, I didn't see anything as far as him being sexually active. I did have that conversation with him as a woman, and how these young ladies are acting. And I was like, you don't see me acting a certain way, so for you to be attracted to these kind of girls, it scares me. I didn't see any of that, but I did see a conversation that one of his girl best friends was asking him for advice because she's sexually active. And, he's trying to give her advice, but these kids are, I hate to say it, so dumb. They don't even know what they're talking about,
Was this another 13-year-old girl?
Another 13-year-old girl. And it took everything in me not to call her mother. And I was like, I was in tears for her mother. Like, her mother doesn't even know what she might be out here doing.
Now, why do you not want to communicate to that person's parent? You think it might go bad because a lot of parents are sensitive about being judged maybe and being told something, or here's the thing that no one wants to hear. Don't worry about my kid. Worry about your kid. I'm raising my kid the way I want to raise them. I mean, is there something there that prevented you from reaching out to that parent?
That was one of my biggest concerns, the ignorance. Because from what my son told me, she's already went through the daughter's phone before. And I was like, I refuse to deal with ignorance. I'm not going to deal with ignorance. And I wasn't going to come at her and tell the mother, oh, you're a bad mom, because this. I felt it was important to tell her, but at the same time, I'm like, if she's going to be ignorant of me, then it's going to be a problem. I'm doing my job as a parent, and I'm going through my son's phone. I'm paying attention to all the little signs. So her job as a parent should be do the same thing. And I can't save everybody's children. I'm taking in 4 of the little boys that I'm trying to help get their grades up and keeping them at my house and doing good and keeping them off the streets. There's only so much I can do. And I've even reached out to other parents like, yeah, we can all get them together. We all got to be on the same page. But when it comes to girls, that's a very sensitive topic. And I know how mothers can be, and I don't want to seem like I was stepping on her toes. And it seemed like she may come off a little ignorant, and that's not the direction I was trying to go.
Yeah, sometimes you have to pick your battles, and you got to know if someone's going to really react crazy to you. This whole conversation, though, I think the most important thing here is the importance of men, parents, fathers, black fathers in the lives of their kids. I
Yes.
think that's pretty much the theme here. To me, it's just the importance of that, and it's kind of difficult to do that when you guys are separated. And I don't mean you specifically, just in general, when parents are separated. Have you and the father got any sort of counseling to try to figure out what's the best way for us to parent as as a separated couple?
No, we haven't, and I'm not opposed to that. I would be all for it, and I think that he would too. We do speak every day. I update him on the kids every day. It's only specifically about the kids, but I don't think that he would be against it either, because one thing he did tell me, he said the only thing that could ever hurt me is my kids. And seeing that his son was going down that path, and we caught it in time, I feel like he's willing to do anything to keep him on the right path, but his consistency has to be there, and that's my biggest issue. And it's kind of hard because I don't want to come off like you're not doing this, you're not doing that, but at the same time, this is my baby, this is life, and I refuse to lose my son to the streets or the juvenile system.
So you got to put a little bit of pressure. We're talking about peer pressure here, but you got to put a little bit of pressure on the father here. You
Yes,
got to
sir.
tell him it's your job to make sure he don't join the gang.
Yes, sir.
It's your job to make sure he doesn't get another woman pregnant, or another teenage girl pregnant. This is your job. I've been raising this kid for 13 years, pretty much. I would say, 90% of the raising, you've done it, right?
Yes, sir.
So that's just my view is you got to really demand from him, this is what you got to do. This is what we want to prevent. We want to prevent him from joining a gang. We want to prevent him from getting involved in criminal activity. We want to prevent him from getting another teenage girl pregnant.
Yes, sir.
All of that stuff, right? And then, of course, we want to prevent him from participating in drug activity,
Yes, sir.
whether he's selling it or using it.
Yes, sir.
And that's the challenge that we all have as parents.
Yes.
I got 3 teenagers, and and
So you understand a little bit.
all of that. But I never went with the let me trust their decisions. There's no way on God's green earth I would trust the decisions of a 13-year-old. Never. Even when the mom says, hey, give them their space, let them do this, let them do that. No, it ain't happening. And I could tell you stories of things we caught, things we've learned, things we found out. But I've always applied heavy pressure and had high expectations from them. And we're still, it's not over, even though my kids are in their late teens now. I got a daughter in college, and I got a 17 and an 18-year-old. The job is still not done.
Yes.
I feel like you got to raise your kids up into their early 20s, and then you can say, okay, now it's on them. But I was listening to some drug counselors. I listen to a lot of drug counselors. Drug counseling is not my specialty, so I listen to those who have more knowledge on this as I do, and they time and time again say they're against the well, let them try it in your presence, or be there when they want to do something. The goal for most drug experts and counselors is prevent your kid from doing any sort of drug for as long as possible. Then down the line, it's less likely they'll ever become users or addicts. So that's kind of the path that I take. I listen to those that have specialty in those areas. So I understand, though. You say, hey, you want to have a drink, you want to try this weed, do it with me, or do it in my presence, do it at home. And that might work for some, but I'm of the school of no, you're not doing any of that for as long as I can prevent you from doing it. Now, if you want to be 21, 22, 23, they'll do it in a more responsible way because they're older. But you can't. I don't think you should let a 13-year-old participate.
No, and I totally agree with you, and I'm accountable for that. I think at the time I never would have thought my son would smoke it. So I was brokenhearted. Like, of all things, that gang banging thing and that right there tore me into pieces. I mean, it's like we talk about this every day. We have affirmations every morning before he steps out to school. We talk when he comes home. We pray, all these things. And again, I'm totally against it. I had told him that just because of the lacing and things like that. And I thought he had enough knowledge, and that was my fault for trusting in him. And that was one thing that I had to learn. I put too much trust and too much pressure. And that's why I say pressure on a 13-year-old. So I even, I've been finding resources. I even offered to take a parenting class. No, I don't think I'm a horrible mother, but if there is something that you can never stop learning, you can never stop growing. So I'm not opposed to anything. I'm open to every avenue to save both of my children. And me being a young mother as well, a lot of people think they have it all figured out. I tell my son says, you have it all. I don't. And I'm honest with that.
Yeah, I mean, we're all constantly learning. I'm constantly learning. I got 3 kids that are all in their late teens, and I'm always trying to figure out and tweak it and get it better and pick up on more information. But what I find interesting here is that as negative as social media is and the impact that it has on young minds, the social media helped you identify a couple of problems. Mm-hmm. Without the social media, you may have been more reluctant to be more naive of what's going on and trusted more. Mm-hmm. But when you went through that social media, you learned pretty much everything you needed to know at that moment. Mm-hmm. That's amazing, because social media, as negative as it is, it could also help you figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. Going through those DMs, going through those accounts, seeing who he's following, seeing who he's communicating. Because trust me, I did the same thing with my kids.
Yeah, and I also think that teenagers don't need iPhones. I liked it for tracking them, but if school is right here, like I said, you got 15 minutes, because I understand you may have to talk to a teacher. All the kids are trying to cross the street. Okay, you got 15 minutes, if that, to get home, I even took 2 months off of work just to be present while this is all going on. I'm going back to work next week. And my sister lives right across the street. My auntie lives right here. So it's like you really can't get away with much. And the fact that he was still able within, and this is only in a month time frame that this happened, a month and a half, because I did not go through that phone for a month and a half. And I felt so stupid. I'm like, why didn't I just go through the phone like I had been? And again, that goes with the trust. And I felt like I was putting so much time in trying to keep him in line, trying to invest in my child. And that's the thing. You have to learn how to manage your time management. So I'm learning so much with this happening. So in a way, it's a good thing that this happened, because we all gonna go through something, especially as teenagers. I'm not perfect. Like I said, I had my son at 17, and there was no reason for me to be having a child at 17. I grew up in a 2-parent household, and I still have both my parents, and they're still together.
What was their reaction when they learned that you were pregnant at 17?
Oh, they were very upset. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I was a late bloomer. I didn't like talking about menstrual cycles with my mother. I didn't like talking about the word sex and all these things. So when it happened, it was like I just had sex, and it was like maybe like the 4th time I was pregnant. I didn't even know I was pregnant. That's how immature I was. I was still a little girl in a little girl's mind. So I didn't know until I was almost 3.5 months pregnant. So I couldn't hide it. And it was like, okay, this is real. I just thought it was going to go away. That's how childish I was, but my dad didn't talk to me for some months. And then, my mother did support me. She obviously was there for me. It put my mom and dad in a bad space within each other, because of course the father's going to blame the mother. But once they seen that I was a great mother, and I handled my responsibilities, and I've always been there, and I went above and beyond to show them that I was a good mom. It changed things, but that could have been prevented, because I came from a great family. But what I will say, and one thing that I recently told my parents, was they did such a good job by hiding their fights, their arguments. I thought their love was just so beautiful. I didn't know. I was so naive. I didn't know they had issues. I didn't know that, cheating even happened between them. So when things like that were happening to me, I felt like I had no one to go to, because in my eyes, my parents had the perfect relationship. I'm supposed to just stay in this relationship with my kid's father for my whole life, because my parents been together, and my dad has 2 children outside of my mother. And
before your mother or during your mother?
Okay, so one is before, and then one is between. So I have two sisters that are 4 months apart. And as a child, you don't even think anything of it, you know?
You're not doing the math.
Yeah, you're not doing the math. It's just my sister. I love her. My mom loves her, and that's just what it is. Both the mothers get along. It took me till I was 22, I think. Cause I think I was pregnant with my daughter at 21, 22. So I realized, okay, they have issues. You know, things are happening. You know, stuff that came out, and then it made me realize, like, oh. So it was like I was kind of sheltered when it came to love, and that's when it made me stand up on my own toes and said, I can't deal with this no more. I got to get out of this.
Yeah, I think that parents arguing in front of their kids is not as negative as some people say. Of course, you know, abuse and you know, throwing chairs across the house,
Right.
that's definitely traumatic. But I think kids definitely need to see how a normal relationship is, because there's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be disagreement. So to hide that from a kid, sometimes I think you're setting your kid up for failure. But I wanted to talk about one more thing here before we wrap it up, because the music is a big factor when we're raising our kids and the things that they're listening to. And I can tell you, over the last several generations, this is no exaggeration, the music has become more provocative. It has become more sexualized, and it has become, in my words, more demonic.
Yes.
How has this been a challenge? Just dealing with the music and entertainment and raising two kids.
So I'll say this: I love music. I was a DMX is my first CD, and Tupac was. So to me, I was listening to things like Brenda's Got a Baby, different things like that, and it was coaching me. My favorite movie was Menace to Society, Poetic Justice, but I took the negative and made it a positive in my life. So the music nowadays is always talking about killing this, that, and the other. And do not get me wrong, I'm not saying I don't listen to this type of music, but sometimes I gotta turn off like, oh my God, I'm tired of hearing it. So when I hear my son listening to it, and you know, he think he's cool, he's fly with his friends. Just yesterday when I was taking his friend home, I lowered the music. I said, so I want y'all to tell me, what is he saying in this song? I don't know, we just like the music. I said, do you know he just incriminated himself about 15 times in this song? And now it's so hard, because it's like you want your child to be themselves. You don't want them to be like you, because you want them to be themselves. But at the same time, the music has such a big influence on why the kids act this way. We live in California. I know California is cold right now. Why are these kids walking around with Pooh Shiesty mask and thinking they King Von, they thinking they Lil Durk and all these things like that? And I'm like, a lot of the times these are characters, you know, and so the music right now, that's another thing I'm working on with him too.
Now, I'm not against some of the music that's provocative, because provocative music has always existed, but it is becoming now almost all the music. There used to be more variety. Mm-hmm. There was more different types of music within the same genre of hip hop. Now it's just all mostly gangsta, sex, and you don't have the variety, and you don't have the other options to listen to if you don't want to listen to that. And that's my whole criticism with the way the music has become sexualized, and it definitely makes it more challenging as a parent when your kid is exposed to just fuck, mm-hmm. shoot, nigga, murder. Mm-hmm. There are not a lot of other options, you know, to listen to.
Right. Because a beat could be catchy, and I'm like, oh, I like this song, you know, and then out of nowhere, you like, okay, you know. So that's something else that even I have to work on within myself, and I'm being honest because I'm realistic. The music we listen to, you know, the movies we watch. I don't watch reality TV. I'm a big documentary person. I like to go to museums, stuff like that. And so that's something else I'm working on too, about the music. And I'm trying to figure out a different outlet, and let's pick apart the lyrics. What is he talking about here? Because at one point my son said he wanted to be a rapper. I said, if you're going to be a rapper, what are you going to talk about? How you garden? That you like to read? That you a granny's boy? That you a mama's boy? Because you can't say you didn't have it and you grew up hard, because that's what these people are saying in their music. And 9 times out of 10, that's not true. And a lot of these people are incriminating themselves in their music. Look what's going on with all these cases. So that's something that I'm working on right now too, is the music.
Now, have you had a chance to communicate with any of the teachers at school and let them know that, hey, I'm a parent that's trying to be more proactive than maybe some of these other parents? And what kind of reaction have you had from any of the teachers if you've been able to reach out?
Oh yeah, they want to hire me. They're ready to hire me. They're like, can we get you as a part-time staff here? The school loves me because they said there's not a lot of parents like me that are very involved, especially me being young. They're like, we need more parents like you. And then on top of that, I'm involved in his friends' teachers' classes too. One of his friends' teacher called me today. Oh, he's doing so much better. And then nowadays everything's online. I can see the missing assignments and everything. So I'm on top of everything. I don't play that. There's no reason why we not going there. We getting these good. We keeping these grades up.
Man, I gotta say that there's so many single black female parents that lack in almost every subject that we talked about in this last hour. I think I know the answer, and it's probably because you were raised with two parents. But what makes you such a proactive, concerned, single mother of two kids more than the average sister in this town? Because I must say there are a lot of terrible mothers. There are a lot of black terrible mothers in this town. And you have definitely showed that a level of concern that I don't see too much in a lot of sisters.
I don't know. I think my heart just, I don't know. I honestly couldn't answer that question. Only the inside of my heart would be able to tell you. But I honestly don't know. This is just who I am.
And the fact that you want to come here and even talk about this subject matter, it already shows the level of concern that you have.
I think there needs to be more awareness. I watch a lot of interviews, your interviews, let's say Cheese, let's say Adam 22. And a lot of the times, even when they bring the parents up there of their deceased son, they only focus on the crime and what their son did and the violence. We never hear about the upbringing and how we can change and make them better before the problem gets worse. And I'm a concerned parent that wants to help and change the way these young men are being viewed as, or these young women are being viewed as, so we can change the cycle, because our kids are our future. And if we don't change this now, this is only going to go to shit.
Definitely. Well, I want to thank you, Mariah, for being so transparent and for opening up yourself, and for you're even exposing yourself to criticism from the public. I'm sure you already know that.
Yes, sir. And I'm okay with that. I have tough skin, and you don't have to like me. You may not like my opinion, and that's okay. I said you love me. I still love you.
Okay, so what are your final thoughts on this incredible conversation that you'd like to leave the people with?
Right now, I just want to let everyone know that I'm working towards trying to put something together. I don't know. It's been heavy in my heart. I've been praying to God. I've been writing notes to come up with something for the youth, boys and girls. If I had a bigger car, I'd take all the kids in me and we can go on field trips on the weekends. It's just on my heart to save the youth right now. That is on my heart. And, I'm a writer, so I'm so deep and I'm so passionate. So everything I do is with passion and with love. So, hopefully by the summer or sometime next year, whenever God gives me the time and the opportunity to put it on my heart, I just want to save the youth and make a difference and make a change.
If anyone wants to tap in with you and perhaps get your book, how can they do that?
My book is on Amazon, my poetry book. You could look it up. It's called The Rose That Blossomed Into Me. And my name is Mariah Hayes. If you wanted to follow me on Instagram, if you have any opinions, please keep them positive, because if it's negative, I just won't read it. My name is _ Mariah, MARIAHHHH_ So it's _ Mariah with 4 H's _.
And I'll put a link to her Instagram in the description of this video. I want to thank everyone who took the time to listen to this conversation. This is a little bit different from what I normally post, but it's just as important, perhaps maybe more important than some of the previous posts. If you want to tap in with me, Alex Alonso 101 on all social media platforms. And thanks for tapping in with Street TV.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can do this again. I really appreciate you, Alex.
Anytime. Thanks for coming through.
No problem.
All righty.